Hi, everyone. We'll be getting started momentarily. Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela McCarthy, and I'm the Vet Marketing Lead here at NeuroFlash. Thank you so much for joining our panel discussion today. I'm excited for you to hear from Salesforce, NeuroFlash, and customer Ocean Network Express, where we'll be discussing how they were able to improve their contact center efficiency with Salesforce Service Cloud Voice. Before we get this panel discussion started, let me quickly go over some housekeeping items. After this webinar, we'll be sending the recording out to you all for your convenience. On the Zoom platform, to submit your questions, you'll see beneath the screen a bar pull up. In this bar, please click the Q&A button to submit questions anytime throughout the webinar. We'll have a 10-minute Q&A at the end for anyone to ask questions. We have 3 panelists that you'll be hearing from today. Let me introduce you to the person who will be leading the discussion, Chris Oliver, Regional Vice President at Salesforce. So without further ado, Chris, I'll hand this over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for spending time with us this morning. We've got a great session with a great customer. Just want to thank you all for taking the time to meet with us. Just by way of quick introduction, Chris Oliver, up in the DC area. I live in Arlington, Virginia, and I oversee the Salesforce's Mid-Atlantic business. So it's a pleasure for me to introduce the 2 gentlemen with me on panel. First, John Hostetler, who's a vice president at NeuroFlash, and I'll let him introduce himself here in a second. And then also Jack Kinsey, who is our actual customer, who's a director of IT strategy and innovation at ONE. So I guess, John, first, feel free to go ahead and introduce yourself to the room.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. John Hostetler. I'm the VP of Sales here at NeuroFlash. Just quickly, for those of you that don't know NeuroFlash, I'll kind of distill it down into a couple sentences here of what we do. But basically, if you think about, we focus on the power of the Salesforce platform to provide seamless experiences to your customers, right? So we take all of this rich customer data that's captured in the platform across all the channels. We overlay that with artificial intelligence, analytics, and then our business knowledge to provide these measurable business outcomes, right? Our whole mantra is being an outcomes-based company. So what we want to accomplish and try to accomplish, and you're going to hear some of that today, at the end of the project is, hey, we were on time, we were on budget, but we also provided a way to calculate these measurable business outcomes so that you can take that to your management and your leadership to prove the value of the system. That's a little bit about NeuroFlash, so I'll turn it back over to Chris.
And Jack, feel free.
Sure. I'm Jack Kinsey. I'm the Director of IT Strategy and Information for Ocean Network Express North America. North America is one of 5 regions in the global company of Ocean Network Express. So my area of responsibility being the technology moving parts predominantly, and then also the strategy and innovation components, such as robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, again, specifically for the North America region, which is headquartered in Richmond, Virginia, where I'm located here in this facility. So behind me, we have a couple of our vessels. We have over 250 of those in operation in the org, and obviously a global container shipping company. Our global headquarters is in Singapore, actually. Chris, back to you.
Well, for the audience, you've now met the cast. We did want to kick off the session with our first polling question, because we know that everyone's time is valuable, and we thank you again for being here. Want to ask just what brought you to the session today, because we want to make sure that we tailor this as best we can. Here are the choices popping up on poll, so feel free to let us know what you think and what brought you here. And as we go through, we'll do our best to make sure that we hit the messaging that you want to hear. We'll leave this up for a few seconds. So it looks like it's an even split then, about learning more about Service Cloud Voice in particular, and the value of the product and how to get started. Very good. Well, we'll definitely be covering both today. Actually, we'll be covering all three of these today. So that's the good news. But thank you all for that feedback. Just to kind of get started and to frame this, I want to have Jack first explain to the audience a little more detail about who Ocean Network Express is. And then also after that, have him talk about just some of the challenges that actually led to him starting to look for another system. So a little bit more on the intro of the company, but then also just some of the challenges that led to him into a conversation with Salesforce and NeuroFlash.
Okay, Chris, great. And also thanks for joining. I'm glad to share this information. We have a pretty good story to tell. And I think before I go into the company just for a moment, I think it's important based on the poll I just saw that as an organization, we weren't a Salesforce company. We weren't using Salesforce in any way, shape, or form. So this was new to us as of late last year when we went through the decisioning process. So if you're in that initial start of journey, we were in the same boat not that long ago. So you should hear a lot about how we turned the corner, and then I'll now go into why we needed it. So we're a global container shipping company. Came to market in 2018, a joint venture between three Japanese liner companies, MOL, NYK, and K-Line. So those have a long history of success in this space and decided to have a joint venture and bring all their container shipping specifically together into one entity. And that became Ocean Network Express. So we launched as a pretty large organization in 2018. April 1st was our first official sailing under our own logo and a fully operating company. As far as valuation of the organization, in the $13 billion range. So it's a pretty significant entity. Our portfolio of service covers more than 100 countries internationally. And a huge focus for us is enhanced service and innovation. That innovation part being really important, not only because our start in 2018 and trying to be different in the industry and the fact that we're into this digitalization era across all industries, but also as we faced COVID and related headwinds and challenges such as the global logistics challenges that are going on right now. We're headquartered in Singapore, I mentioned that, with 5 operating regions: Latin America, South Asia, East Asia, Europe and Africa, and then North America, and that's where I'm located. Core values, very important to us, but harken back to the service and innovation side with quality, reliability, innovation is one of those core values, customer satisfaction, another one. And those things point to very significant technology implications and demands for transportation, for transformation. Within our org, and then also we participate in combined entities looking at the industry in general and how we can improve service for customers and efficiencies, et cetera. So further on I believe Chris, you also asked about challenges that we had. Improved customer service is always there. You heard me a moment ago speak about the core values. Customer service and relationship is critically important. We're not an entity that has a product on a shelf that is purchased, right? It's often a multi-step process, and there are a lot of nuances, regulatory requirements when you are involved in international shipping. So our customer service is not just about fixing something that someone is dissatisfied with. It's about finding out what the customer needs, how to provide that via a range of capabilities, and then delivering on that promise to the customer. So giving us an ability to focus on solutions is really important. Shift left is a common term across industries, trying to bring the information and the capability closer to the customer and cut out some of the excess layers. So shift left is a big focus for us and a challenge. We needed the right technology to be able to make that happen. Worker efficiency, obviously somewhat related to shift left, but not exactly. Making sure our workers are focused on the things they need to focus on to get whatever task done. And which brings us to, we were moving past contact center needs where we were just reachable and more towards the engagement center model. And if you look at, quadrants and things like that, you would see that engagement is becoming more and more of an important function for an organization, not just across channels, but also across business units and such. I do want to mention also, as far as challenge goes, you'll hear later on, probably as we get into this, that we had two different paths for Salesforce that happened. So North America, the organization that I'm responsible for on the IT and technology side of things, we were looking for an alternative for our contact center, our customer service center organization. Interestingly enough, there were some thoughts that in our global entity to have a replacement for our customer relationship management solution. And we found out as we were moving ahead with our project that those thinkers were looking towards Salesforce potentially as well. So we actually had a bit of a dual Salesforce path in our operation. I know this is not all about Salesforce, it's about Service Cloud Voice, but one of the beautiful things about Service Cloud Voice is the capabilities that we needed for our contact center were part of a package that is directly and tightly integrated with Salesforce, and bringing some of the alignment that's needed across our teams. Support, sales, more alignment and leverage needed across the organization. And then the last thing that I think is important to share is that we are becoming more of a data-driven enterprise or information-driven organization, depending on which acronym you want to use. And we need our conversations and our engagements, not just the final products, as data to leverage it for the longer term, to understand the needs, the wants, the results of what we're doing. And the Service Cloud Voice and Salesforce combined allows us to convert a lot of that material in a logical flow and structure it such that it can be used in a data environment. So Chris, I know it's a long list of things and we can drill into those if there are more interest, but those are some of the challenges that we faced as an organization.
It would also help maybe too, because I'm sure that some of the folks on the bridge are part of large organizations that maybe even have multinational footprint. How are you able to navigate internally and keep your teams coordinated across all these time zones? I'm sure that was also challenging as part of this.
Yeah, I was on a 2-hour call last night from 8 to 10 o'clock. It's a bit of will. I'll say that. People have to be determined, but I won't say it's purely easy. But when you see the goal commonly across groups, it helps with the determination that's needed to move these things ahead. Now, as far as some of the operational and execution components of it, there's logic and process related. So, clear documentation, written communication is critically important. We use chat functions in the organization to keep people abreast. And as an organization, talking about international, we do use common language. English is the primary language, obviously, because we do have participation across the globe from multiple countries. BPIT is spread throughout each of those. Each of the regions has its own IT org, et cetera. So, work breakdown structure, we use agile methodologies to keep things organized. I won't name a bunch of other products in the background, but you'd know which they are to keep your agile work in order. And we do a pretty good job of linking the different sprints and work sets. If you're not an agile shop, the breakdown of work moves into some sprint cycle of a finite period. And we link those together using a slightly enhanced agile mechanism so that teams understand what the dependencies are across each other. And it does a pretty good job of highlighting where we need to interact in a direct and personal one-on-one or group-on-group way, or just keep track with status updates throughout the organization.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that covered it well.
No, it totally did. Very challenging environment, a big decision to make. And I know that and I know that we'll be speaking to this next, but O&E had to consider what system to choose. So to sort of frame up this portion of the conversation, we want to go to our second polling question. I want to ask the audience, and again, many of you have probably already started looking at voice systems in your own companies, but what are some things that you're taking into consideration when choosing a CTI or a voice system? Just want to get a sense of what folks in the audience are thinking about that matter to them and their personal mission. And again, we'll leave this up for a few seconds. So integration to core Salesforce. Cost certainly is always a factor. Long-term automation capabilities, yes. And all the above. Yep, well, they do all matter, for sure, they do. This is helpful. Thank you all for that. I'll turn to Jack again. It'd be helpful for everybody to hear the process that you went through to decide on the technology and the factors that mattered for O&E in particular. Again, given your multinational scope, big problem to solve. Just what were some of the things that rose to the top in terms of priorities for you all and some of the features that you were looking for?
Sure. Maybe just a slight comment on the background here. We weren't obligated or under any kind of business side pressure to remove the old platform. I mean, this was a look towards improvement for the organization. And having launched in 2018 on the platforms at the time, 2018 wasn't that long ago. So we still had the open mindset of what do we need to improve? I mean, the same players that came up with the solutions during the launch phase of this organization tended to be the same players that were thinking, they're the okay, well, what can we do next type of mentality. And so we were looking at things like real-time transcription, right? That's actually at the top of the list, and it goes back to the data-driven enterprise IDO concept, and that we want these interactions to be data so that we can leverage it to get better, to be smarter and make better decisions. So the conversation of the call to data gives us a huge benefit there. And not just that, the logic that you can use when you have the chat or the web to case functionality, et cetera, can follow a similar pathing logically where it matters, such that the data becomes useful even across channels. It's a little complicated to understand there, but very structured data when you have a web to case or form to fill out. Email, less structured. Phone call, certainly less structured. But being able to convert it into a common pathing and logic, and then leverage that insight across all channels is a really great capability and something we were looking for. Also capturing, capturing intent and customer state, right? Intensity, also out there. Reliability, point of concern. I wouldn't say we had huge problems with our prior solution, but looking towards Amazon Web Services, the provider of the Service Cloud voice function, a lot of confidence in the ability of AWS to continue to grow and develop and have good change control and give us. And we're a very cloud-oriented organization, having launched in 2018. Again, we're cloud first by far, and essentially North America has arguably 0 servers in the organization because everything is cloud. So we've become quite adept at managing cloud services as opposed to just internal services, and knowing the capabilities and confidence we can have in AWS was really important. Also looking towards artificial intelligence and machine learning opportunities. Again, conversion to data is a great foundational capability to move into those areas more fully. And then you can't help, it's obviously tied to Salesforce directly. Like the workflows that go directly into case management gives us that, I'm using the word foundation again, but gives us that foundation across teams. As I hinted at before, we have a parallel implementation going on for CRM and service from the global perspective, using our North America as the baseline for capabilities, even though that was not the plan out of the gate because we weren't a Salesforce shop before. It just happened to be that way as we've moved forward. And so that was not so much a challenge that we were dealing with, but it was one of the results. And at the end of the day, we realized we were all speaking a bit of common language that could be shared across the decisioning. And then we did want to have improved statistics and monitoring and visibility, and some automation for handling of the way agents needed to be deployed. That was a struggle for us. There's a lot of manual work to decision who needed to be on the phones or on chat or where. And our contact center is in multiple locations too. Not just multiple locations in the norm, but in COVID world, they're all remote workers at this point, and continue to be. So statistics, performance monitoring, critically important in our world, and we're looking to improve in those areas as well.
I want to applaud O&E. You all ran a very, very thorough evaluation process, detailed RFP, looked at most of the solutions in the market, and were highly thorough in the investigation on this. If you're going to kind of sum up what set Service Cloud Voice apart from that sea of solutions that you looked at, what would you pin it to?
Yeah, the scoring at the end of the process wasn't even close. I mentioned some of the key things that we were looking for, and at risk of restating many of those, we found there were probably 40 different, no, it's more than that, but 40 different key features that we were looking for. Then there's the like to have list. Yeah. And we went through and checked the box on the vast majority of those, even into the wants category with the Salesforce combined product, Service Cloud Voice and Salesforce Service Cloud. And the other, what we often heard, there were some leading thinkers in some niche areas in certain functions that we were looking for, but they didn't have the complementing component on the other side. And I won't name any of those vendors, but if you look on the market for the best in class for VoIP that has some of the really neat features you'd want, like transcription and such, they don't have the capability to connect at this point in time. And even the players in the contact center category, the quadrant folks, they created a new class of engagement center because contact center wasn't the same thing as this engagement center concept that we were working to, where it's all integrated and tied together and becomes, harmonious, probably too strong of a word there, but it does. So the numerous vendors we looked at, and you mentioned the RFP process, we started out with a bit of a blank slate on what we could look at. We didn't have to move from what we were using. We wanted to find something better. And so we looked at broadly at the industry and those folks able to provide contact center, and whittled it down to about 10 providers. So even that's a pretty long list to do in-depth reviews from. And at the end of that process, Salesforce and Service Cloud Voice were not just the technology stack that the BPIT org that I'm responsible for. Also on the business side, they were really pushing us to go that route as well. So we found commonality between the business. So it really actually made a pretty obvious case to move ahead for us when we were speaking to our North America leadership, which is required to even go to the global entity and say that this is what we want to do. And at the end of the process, everyone was on board. So kind of went off there on a bit of a tangent, but it all interrelates, right? The functionality and the value that we get, not talking about cost perhaps, but the value we get by bringing these things together in a channel and focusing the energy of our agents and the technology to the need across teams, sales, marketing, and customer service is critically important. And I probably should go into that. So we'll see if we get to a space where I can talk about the kind of intersection between the two efforts.
Yeah. Well, I did want to pose the same question to John because he's got 20 years of telephony, 20 plus in telephony. And as a partner of Salesforce has really doubled down on Service Cloud Voice as a solution for his business. What do you think differentiates it from your perspective, John?
Yeah, so I have been doing this a long time, and I think when we first saw Service Cloud Voice being introduced at Dreamforce, I think we were blown away. When you first see it, you notice some of the features like real-time transcription, the integration of Amazon Lex for self-service, things like sentiment analysis, which are all awesome and provide great value. But really, I think when you drill down another level, and I think Jack mentioned this, it's that I'll use his word, harmonious integration, right? So there's never been, taking that CRM customer data and combining that with the contact center. It's always kind of been an adjunct of one another. So, and because they're now one system, I think it allows a whole new world of customer and agent experience. I'll give you a couple of examples. I always joke, imagine being greeted by, hello, Mr. Hostetler, are you calling about your case that you opened yesterday, rather than, please listen carefully as our menu options have changed, right? How many times have we heard that? So totally changing the game and providing that personalization. Things like easily shifting channels, right? So if my queue times are long, how do I get people over to SMS and start texting with us to get service rather than waiting in queue, right? So shifting that channel and shifting that customer perception of, hey, I'm waiting in queue, instead of now I get to use a channel that I normally use and like. Blending of agents, right? So an agent can take any type of interaction, and what that allows is then a unified routing engine. So I can start routing all of those engines or all of those interactions and doing something with them, and then to top that off. Now, because I'm doing that with unified routing, I get to report on all of those interactions, and I get to see what's happening in my contact center. Again, it used to be, there were products out there where you spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars just trying to combine all of that data into one platform so that you could report on it. Now that's being done automatically. So yeah, I very excited about the solution, and I think O&E is an awesome example of this, and I can't wait to hear about some of the stuff Jack's going to do here in the future.
No, thanks for that. So we've covered kind of defining what the problem was, and then sort of the search for the right technical solution, the right technology. I want to turn now to the considerations that O&E went through when they chose a partner. And let me just state, just for the audience, as someone who is selling software at Salesforce today, I will tell you the software matters. It does, and it needs to work. But it is massively important that you pick the right partner to work with when you roll it out. Just like any software project, it matters who you're married to in that process. And so we take it very seriously at Salesforce. We've got a very, very robust partner network. And we specifically chose NeuroFlash to work with on this project, and we'll talk about why here in a minute. But just want to make sure that the audience really considers that as you're going down a path with Salesforce, make sure that you spend the time to vet partners and find the right one that'll work for you, because the proof comes out after a successful install and the value is realized. So it's just a very, very key step to take. But I'll ask Jack, just what are some of the things that NeuroFlash has done throughout this install to not only get the software turned on, but just to drive value and help enable the project for you?
Sure. Excellent partner for us. Continues to be an excellent partner for us in this realm as we look towards the next evolutions of this. So during the first engagements with NeuroFlash, and as was mentioned, Salesforce introduced us to NeuroFlash. We're actually obligated to look at, anytime we're spending anything, we're obligated to look at multiple providers for audit purposes and such. So it's just our business rules internally. So we did have an obligation to look to other entities, but it was quite clear out of the gate that NeuroFlash wasn't going to pressure us to do what they knew how to do. It was not like that at all, which was I've implemented many other significant stacks and technologies. I won't go into those, but if you've done significant implementations across business lines, then you know that sometimes the integrator comes to you and says, this is what you need to do, and doesn't help bridge the gap, which is critically important. So we were open-minded internally that we were going to make this change, that we wanted to get the right product and have best practice. But that best practice needs to be matched, and we got to find the sweet spot between our needs and those best practices. And I can't emphasize it enough that NeuraFlash didn't just come in and say, well, this is best practice and where you need to go. They said, this is best practice and what we think would apply for you based on what you've provided to us, which their analysis was quite thorough. And then we had discussions about how that needed to operate going forward. And sorry, I was interrupted there. I got a different call on a different line. And then we decided cumulatively, together, what direction we needed to go. We had down to the agent engagement in discussions.
Always inevitable.
Chris, you definitely jinxed us. You brought it up.
I thought I had my fingers crossed under the table. Maybe only one hand, not both.
All right, everyone.
We'll give it a second here. I don't know if it was that important, Tim Casey. I don't know if it was that important. Actually, before Jack jumps back on, I can give you my own perspective too. Again, as a sales leader at Salesforce, we have a vast partner network. You all on the bridge are probably well aware of that. We've made a strategic decision to build that partner network out. And so actually, I'll give a couple. Oh, Jack's back. I'll let you finish.
Yeah. This is why you don't trust other phone systems. So that was some other phone kicking in on me.
Well,
so my apologies. And then Zoom actually completely shut down. I had to restart. So I was speaking about NeuraFlash's engagement with us. And again, sincerely apologize for that disconnect. Engage with us directly. We had every layer of customer service in our organization engage with them. Again, reminder that everyone was remote. It's not like we could have them over for tea and have a conversation in a room to get it all worked out. Super organized throughout. The project manager and the technical resources that were applied to engage with us during the pre-sales phase were the same people that implemented with us, which is something that is incredibly important as far as efficiency goes as well. So since I lost a couple of minutes there, I will say that did a thorough review, engaged directly with the right people at NeuraFlash that continued through the implementation, and we're still working with them now in the post-go live maintenance and future opportunity side of things. So a great partner for us. They adjusted to our timeline needs. They adjusted when we wanted to extend training further. They adjusted when we wanted to do UAT a slightly better way to allow our agents to stay live on the phones while they're doing their regular work as we're proceeding with the implementation work. So a great partner for us. I'm really glad we made that choice. It was clear out of the gate that they were the right one for us.
Yeah. And I was just telling the audience that we have a network of thousands of partners. What set NeuraFlash apart from Salesforce's perspective in the engagement was, and you hit on a lot of it, they have such quality engineering staff for planning and deployment, some exceptional talent for one, very, very thorough. And they've really built out a solid practice across a number of our product lines, but with Service Cloud and Service Cloud Voice, they've really, really cracked that code. And they've done a number of large, complex installs. We knew that for O&E and for your requirements, especially given the multinational status of the company, that we would need a very, very expansive design, and it would need to scale. And it was a no-brainer to choose NeuraFlash to partner up with you all. So we're glad it worked out well. But we're accustomed to that with NeuraFlash. They've been a solid partner of ours for years. So I did want to, we kind of mentioned the software matters. Certainly you have to be able to find the right tech stack. You've got to deploy it the right way and have the right partner involved. But you also need to be able to handle the people side of this too, which can be the most challenging part, the change management piece. So people will focus on the software selection process, and they have to, but people will also sometimes overlook the change management side of this, which can be the hardest part of rolling out a new software package like this. So I don't know if Jack, if you could speak to how you all handled that internally, how you sort of primed your user base for getting a new tool, and how you navigated all the personnel and people related issues tied to this.
Sure. I would say the most important thing is, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but it's the engagement. We had our business unit working with us out of the gate as we went through the entire decisioning process. They never felt like we were pushing something on them. We were lockstep in understanding what their needs were as we proceeded through, not just the needs and the overall vision and business requirements for the selection, but then through the implementation as well. So staying in close touch with them, it was very, very important. So in general, I've already mentioned that we're an agile shop. So we use agile project management framing around all of this. We had standing meetings, internally to discuss and make sure that we had the right combined vision as we incremented through the different phases of the project and go live. And then engagement with NeuroFlash, obviously, and then engagement layered on top of that with the larger Salesforce implementation at the global level, which was, post our implementation. And I probably should restate how that happened and why there are two different paths there. So North America evaluating improvements for customer service and their engagement solution, right? That was the North America plan. We started looking at different products. We started focusing on Salesforce, engaged with global and said, hey, we're thinking we'd like to go to Salesforce to do this. And they said, well, you know what? We're also thinking that Salesforce would be a good fit for these other things. So we began to collaborate with them. We went live before they went live, even in their pilot phases. They were starting on the CRM side of things, and we were starting on the Service Cloud side of things. And so the change management had multiple layers and multiple effects and straddled two different objective sets at the same time. But I would say that at the basic, you got to remember the whole people, process, technology stack, right? All of them have to be moving in sync with common understanding. If any one of those gets significantly out of whack, it jeopardizes. So we have a good advantage in that our technology organization is BPIT, so Business Process Information Technology. We have a significant stake in defining how business processes operate in the organization, which is unique here versus my other experience in past roles and responsibilities, in that it's actually a duty assigned to us to understand those business processes and assist with defining those. We have a bit of a leg up to some organizations where we have that natural discussion and built-in discussion process anyway. But like I said, focus on that people, process, technology set and making sure that you're making progress in all those areas is critically important. And writing things down and drawing pictures, right? Because the folks in the room, it's easy for them to get, but you got to get everyone else on the bus. You got to keep people on the bus, and not everybody can make every meeting. So documenting it, having a clear plan of execution, getting buy-in incrementally, and keep moving the ball forward and staying in sync, all critically important on the people side of things.
Mm-hmm. That's well said, especially writing things down. I'll second that. So fast forwarding to now, you're live. And again, I guess the next challenge of a software deployment like this is you look backwards and you say, well, we thought we were going to get this amount of value from it. And you probably had a set of KPIs in mind when you started this. Now in the rear view, how are you doing against those? And what were they? What were the operating assumptions at the beginning? And now that you're live and looking backwards, what have you been able to realize in this in terms of the post-deployment value?
Sure. With GHQ, we have actually quite strict KPI monitoring program in place to ensure that we're meeting the expectations that quite often we set for ourselves. So we are seeing the expected results within this program and project. I can't go into too much detail there, but there are 6 different key metrics, which are the traditional ones, the average speed of answer and abandon rate and all those fun things. are within parameters there, and we continue to report those to our global headquarters, and we're doing quite well. I will say that some of the people that had to spend time monitoring are now working in the space of optimizing the utilization of personnel. They used to have to, sit back with, Google Sheets and draw out the staffing plans for each line, et cetera. And as we see the needle move in certain areas across different groups, we're able to shift some of that workload. And we continue to implement and bring more into the Salesforce organization and operating model that we have. In fact, we have another go live of a set of mailboxes that are customer facing for special purposes happening on November 1st. So we continue to roll process in. I think, to be frank, that's one of the key indicators of success, is that people are asking for more of that. And there's a super high level of confidence from the leadership of the customer service group and within BPIT and the global organization to keep doing what we're doing, bring more chat functionality in, bring to the surface more of the Salesforce capabilities that we've spoken about, and expand it further, including, and Service Cloud Voice is exclusively for the North America entity right now, but we've been asked recently to assist with conceptualizing at least a functionality beyond our region, since we have such good success with it. So all in all, there was overhead with implementations, no avoiding that, right? There's a change cost there that has to be paid. But we were, in general, able to avoid that penalty of a go live hit, and did a great job with that.
That is a good segue to, it's an exciting time. What's next for you? I know that you mentioned that there's a lot of internal demand for this, that other lines of business are raising their hand, which we see a lot. But what are you the most excited about as this sort of further takes root in the organization?
Yeah, by far the bringing together the sales and marketing teams along with customer service, and to bridge that gap between promises made and promises kept, right, tends to be the case. Right, we have a sales and marketing team that are working with our customers to determine the contracts and obligations and agreements for the volume that we'll see from each of them. And on the flip side, our customer service group is not only dealing with any kind of issue that pops up, but also they're the ones that help assist with building out the individual container orders and movements and those kinds of things as well. So bringing the sales and marketing and the customer service groups together into the same platform and converting those interactions into data, which our sales and marketing team were working to do on the former CRM platform. There was always talk about, well, wouldn't it be great if we could have feeders between? But we have the feeders. Like with this Sales Cloud and Service Cloud implementations, we now have an integrated platform across the globe where the data set is the data set, and those things are coming into alignment. So just to restate, because that was kind of a long answer for what I'm most excited about, it's bringing those groups together onto the common platform so that we can see end to end the relationship, convert it into data, and leverage that data to optimize how we are handling our customers, servicing our customers, and whether or not we're providing the right product. What things can we do better to improve our situation and our customer situation is by far the thing I look forward to most. There are incremental improvements that I like to see. I like to see the number of phone calls, generally the sales going up, but the phone calls going down is a fun thing to see over time. The shift left concept, where more and more customers some customers don't want to change what they're doing, and that's down to the person level even. And you can coach all you want, but seeing when the customer starts preferring the new methods and what is more efficient for you, like the self-service, like that shift left concept, is really, really exciting to see. And in fact, we're going through reviews right now, and we're seeing headcount of phone use in customer service going down because we're focusing our customers to those alternate channels. That's another thing that's in progress that I'm looking forward to see more of.
Well, that's a great note actually to end on for the formal portion of this. I want to thank our panelists. We have 15 minutes left in the session. Wanted to open it up to the audience for any Q&A, and feel free to ask us anything that's top of mind. And don't be shy. We don't bite. I believe, Michaela, that they can submit through chat, I think.
Yeah, everyone, you can submit through chat or the Q&A button at the bottom. Either way, just submit your questions there and we can answer them.
Let's see here. I believe that's for Jack.
Yeah, sure. I'll take that. We do have ideas that we would like to implement Service Cloud Voice globally. We are on a standardized phone platform for the rest of the globe. And it's not, they're not Salesforce, it's rather desk phone functionality. And we would like to bring those sales and marketing and customer facing personnel into the combined architecture of Salesforce and Service Cloud Voice. I'll actually kind of pass it back to Chris and John, because there are we went live on Service Cloud Voice when it was fairly new, right? We had the same aha moment, just at a different time that John had. We went, oh my gosh, this really exists and they're integrated. This is perfect. So we still have that, but Service Cloud Voice wasn't available in all areas. And so I'll stop there because I don't want to share anything that I know that I shouldn't share. And Chris or John, do you want to take it from there?
I can have John weigh in because the product has matured a lot. Maybe if you could speak to just kind of global coverage and just things like that, would be helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So as Amazon being agile, they're adding new regions, new features every month or two. So there's some big releases coming out soon that we're very excited about. But from a global perspective, they are supported in some areas that they aren't. We have workarounds that we can get the telephone call to an agent in that area. So I wouldn't let it be, if you're thinking about this, I wouldn't let it be a showstopper, because just because something isn't supported by Amazon specific to that phone, to that region, we definitely can get a phone call there and not break any rules doing it. So we have workarounds.
Can you also speak to, not to get in the weeds too far, but can you speak to latency, like for calls going globally? Have you all seen any issues with latency or scale?
We have not seen any latency. I mean, some of the largest corporations in the world are using this. Capital One Bank has 60,000 seats on this. So latency is not an issue. You're on the Amazon backbone. We can get Amazon on the phone to talk about that, but from a global networking perspective, no one's going to be better.
Got a question.
As far as our architecture, our Salesforce instance is actually in Japan, and our Amazon service, the Service Cloud Voice, comes out of the West Coast of the US. So you can, they link together. I would say every organization needs to do their due diligence, because the layer of IT securities that happens, I said securities plural, but that's by far the biggest thing. We have layers of proxies, we have layers, especially with remote workers, right? You have people trying to do phone service off of hotspots, right? Literally in the world. So you need to do your due diligence. But the Amazon, as far as if you can get there, it's been absolutely rock solid, even with the link between Tokyo and the US.
We've got a question from Jesse to Jack on the internal sale, which is the other challenging part of this.
Sure. I would say that writing things down was the obvious statement I made earlier, right? And that echoed again from Chris. Speaking in the business value terms was most important to us. There are some folks that want to see the details behind it, but at the end of the day, making sure that your business objectives are clearly stated and why this solution is the right one for your organization. that should be, in the first set of slides. And then the supporting information that goes forward. So some of the highlights that pushed our business case through, if not cost, and it wasn't cost. Salesforce was not the cheapest player in the marketplace for this. So it wasn't a pure cost play. It was a value play for us in the longer term. The highlights was the vision of growth with our organization, in that Salesforce was on a trajectory and is on a trajectory to develop in the ways that we want a system to develop in this area for us. The Service Cloud voice functionality, I probably didn't highlight enough. That together with Salesforce, we couldn't find that functionality in any other product. And we looked at them, essentially all of them, right, for key features. It didn't exist anywhere else. So once you have something that is that unique and an advantage in your organization, and most importantly beyond that, you're able to take advantage of it, you're actually able to do something with it. I think those are the critical pieces. And we were, because of our 2018 launch and our vision of innovation and transformation and being, best we don't have to be the best as far as technology, but we have to be optimized and developing to make sure that we're in the sweet spot. Highlighting it in business terms and translating the value that it can bring and how you're going to take advantage of it was key. And the great news is we've delivered on all those promises and more. So we built a huge amount of trust in the organization, and even on prior projects, right? You got to have standing enough for people to trust you. That's an obvious statement.
These are great questions. Anybody else out there? Going once, going twice.
And thank you, Laura and Jesse, for asking those questions. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Well, I think we can give you all a few minutes back on your busy. Always. Oh, here we go. Follow up. The hardest onboarding piece. Good question. Another good question.
Yeah, Chris touched on it. Change management. It's the people process. We didn't have resistant people. We had people that were good at what they do already with the tools that they were familiar with. And so naturally, you're going to have an obstacle there, because we're asking people to do things significantly different than they were as far as the tool set that we put in front of them. So the hardest onboarding piece was absolutely bringing our agents up to the level where they could be as capable in the new platform as they were in the old, or better, right? We needed to break even at the very least at launch and then carry forward. So that discipline regarding we used our UAT environment. We had everyone test everything out in the operation. So there was actually feedback. We had, change champions and those kinds of things in place, but everyone was in UAT. Everyone tried it out. We had test runs for people to try to break things. And we actually rewarded folks for who broke the most, right? With the cards and things like that. So we went through a lot of how to, a lot of focus, put a lot of time and effort into how to get the agents up to speed and execute.
And Laura has a follow-on as well maybe you can both take a crack at this one.
I'm sure that would be interesting how that was. So I've spoken a lot. I have to think about something else, but John, you've been listening in. If you want to jump in, maybe there's something I forgot that you thought was really good to highlight.
Well, yeah, maybe just from the rollout, just any interesting surprises or things that came up that are worth highlighting.
Yeah, I think I don't know. This sounds like bragging a little bit. So anything that I haven't shared, I don't think that I shared that the North America implementation of customer service actually became the template for the case management side for the global implementation. I mean, there will be changes, right? We have, international boundaries and processes that are different amongst regions and countries, but it's a really great thing when the solution that NeuroFlash, Salesforce, and our O&E entity in North America came up with becomes the baseline for the entire global implementation, right? That's a big kudos to the NeuroFlash team, the choice for Salesforce, et cetera, in that, as they would have gone through this process anyway and started from scratch, but instead went, oh, wow, that works really well. Let's see what we can leverage in our case management that can carry forward the same benefits to the rest of the organization. So I don't think I shared that, but I think it's a really neat outcome. Fun for me, certainly, and a kudos to the NerveFlash team.
And converting over blackout time. How'd you handle the switch over?
Yeah, sure. We had a very clear launch plan. Like every step of everything was documented in a checklist. So our internal project manager did an outstanding job throughout the project, was partnered with an outstanding project manager on the NerveFlash side. It was amazing how in sync that they were. We had the benefit of not operating on weekends in general. Of course, we're receiving email and those kinds of things, but in general, our agents aren't operating on the weekends. So we had the ability to cease operations on Friday at a certain time, initiate the cutover plans that were very well defined step by step, and then we actually did just a first toe in the pond for production during that Friday event. Brought one box over, made sure everything was flowing, so that we had no points of concern, or at least minimized points of concern as we went live on the Monday. We did bring agents in over the weekend so that they could work and get a feel when the pressure wasn't on. And as far as the transition goes, somewhat related, the old system to the new, we had a pretty clear process that if it wasn't closed out on one side, that we would forward that information over to the new system and they would begin working the case immediately. So we had a very clear cutoff over that weekend to cease operations on the old legacy platform and to begin operations on the new. I do respect that other teams won't have that weekend luxury that we have, your 24/7 operations. But I would say with the right application of people and process, that we were able to bridge the gap between systems. And I would say that you would be able to do. I can imagine and envision that with our redirection of phone calls back and forth, which NerveFlash did a great job with. We had a couple of times where we needed to flip back and forth because of some internal decisioning. They were able to manage the forwarding and such that we were able to operate in both environments reasonably well. So there are some tactics you could use to get through it if you didn't have a break like we have for the weekend.
And from Delaney.
Okay,
Good
right
question.
fit for them.
Well, Jack, take Brian's here.
Okay.
The-
Manage IVR ACD type of change. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, we don't, it used to be that we had to get recordings and upload them into the system and that would handle it. But now the business is able to manage the actual, the interactive voice and the menu processes as well. As far as the delivery of the calls down to the agent levels, it's all based on, in the world that we're using, it's based on the menu selection. Still, we're looking forward to improving the interaction and having more voice-driven routing and spoken passing to the individual agents. But right now, it's coming through, and we're using the phone lines. It's a menu tree functionality, which is what we had before. Again, the changes on the customer side are a bit of a challenge.
And Jack, you said the business is going in and making changes to those connect flows.
That's correct. And there is some support from the BPIT side of things. And then when there's some really nuanced item, we do need to go to the NerveFlash team, which is providing ongoing support for us. But in general, yeah, these things are being handled by the business units. As far as in-house expertise, we're developing that. We were not, another highlight, we weren't a Salesforce shop prior, right? We had very limited understanding of Salesforce in the organization. And, we're in the 10,000 people range, and that's prior to the offshore resources. In North America, we're about 850 people. And there might be 7 that really have an idea of what Salesforce is and how it works. So we didn't have that experience in-house. We have begun to develop it, and in general, we have a support contract with NerveFlash, but we are ramping up significantly. And most things, even out of left field stuff, we're able to handle in-house. So it's a bit of both and balance, and we're continuing to roll more skill into our group. It fortunately is, once you understand the basics, it's not difficult. I would say that the visioning and implementation, quite complicated, ongoing support and maintenance, not so much unless people throw you a curveball.
And I believe Delaney had one up top on just overall recommendations to businesses who are evaluating the fit for Service Cloud Voice. Let's see, what was it?
Your recommendations to businesses who are currently evaluating whether Service Cloud Voice is the right fit for them.
Yep.
I would say just make sure you have very clear understanding of your business requirements and what your targets are. Whatever that North Star is for you is critically important. I would also say that you I guess there's a presumption that you're already in the Salesforce space, but maybe that's not appropriate. I mean, Service Cloud Voice is a specialized product that ties to Salesforce. So at the end of the day, if you are going to be a Salesforce org, looking at that data, whether or not you'd be able to take advantage of the data aspects of it, converting the conversations into data, the real-time transcription, the workflows that can be leveraged within that, the Einstein AI and machine learning capabilities. I mean, those are the features and benefits that you'd want. Now, there's also the benefit of it comes with the package, right? It being integrated is great if you're able to take advantage of those items in the longer term. And in fact, it's just a matter of convenience too, I would say. But we didn't look at it from that aspect of that we're going Salesforce, then should we get just buy it along with it? I mean, that makes a lot of sense that since it's prepackaged and essentially prepackaged and it can come with it. But we looked it down at the detailed functionality level to see if we wanted to go that route, and the data conversion, the real-time transcription, AI machine learning potential, those were the key elements and business values that we were looking forward to.
Yeah. And from Brian?
Next best action based on the voice channel, you find benefits today from voice analysis. We do have a pretty solid QA team that is responsible for monitoring the quality of the call at the agent level, and they're beginning to take it. And we're still fairly live. We went live in July, and we're focused a lot on the continued rollout and this global implementation. So as far as optimizing and leveraging the next best action and voice channel, we knew what our process needed to be to maintain continuity for the organization. We have a very limited amount of direction towards next best action. We do have the knowledge base stood up in some of that functionality, but it's not at this point as mature as we'd want it to be. So I'll leave that alone. We're in the starting phases of that defined next best action based on the voice channel. On the finding benefits today from the voice analysis, the QA team that's responsible for call quality is taking advantage of some of that to determine the quality of the call with the agent, et cetera. So that's the limited use of the voice analysis piece right now. John, if there's anything you want to add to that?
Nope. There's a lot of functionality that we hope you take advantage of in the future.
Yeah.
All the questions. I know we're at the top of the hour, but any final questions from the audience? And thank you all for these really good questions.
Thank you.
Well, I do want to thank everybody for jumping on. Thank you for giving us an hour of your life. Hopefully you found it valuable. And thanks again to the panelists for making it a great discussion. Hope you all have a great rest of Wednesday. And thanks for considering what you've heard today. We all three appreciate it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.